Yet if you were to try to read that original document that we published, you wouldn't be able to. After millions of views, about a week after it's published, Google took it down for violating its terms of service. And it's still down to this day. A couple months later, I wrote another article called "The Study Out of Thin Air." This was the article about the Lancet study that was published discrediting hydroxychloroquine. It was kind of a little bit of a deep dive into Surgisphere, which was what we know now is a shell corporation that provided this it's a most likely fabricated data set. There were reports that people messaged me saying that Facebook continually took down the link to the article. And later, they allowed the link because it turned out to all be true, of course, and that study was formally retracted just a couple days later. This degree of censorship is happening to not just physicians, but people everywhere on social media platforms. We have the CEO of YouTube who openly stated that anything that was said on YouTube that was against the advice of the World Health Organization, which we all know has made a number of mistakes throughout this pandemic, would be subject to censorship. We know that Mark Zuckerberg said the similar thing on Facebook. And, you know, this is incredible, and it kind of goes to what Dr. Erickson was talking about earlier about the American Republic. Because with the pandemic, with the fear of this pandemic, in the matter of just weeks, with mandated stay-at-home laws, with rules against public gatherings, we really lost the right to peaceably assemble. So people naturally go to social media platforms, even more so than before, to communicate with one another, to get messages out and learn. And then we're censored there, eroding our ability to have free speech. And so what we've seen is, in the matter of just a couple weeks, really some of the most fundamental rights of the American Republic being taken away from us. And I think it's incredibly important for Americans to resist the loss of these civil liberties. Thank you.
There has been an unprecedented infringement on the doctor-patient relationship from governors, often restricting pharmacies from prescribing hydroxychloroquine. How do you feel about governors restricting its use? And what do you think about the politicization of healthcare?
Oh my goodness. So again, as a board-certified emergency physician, the whole reason I got involved in this is because I was restricted from prescribing an FDA-approved medication for patients who needed it. This has never happened before in medicine. There's never been a situation that a drug is cheap, generic, safe, FDA approved for 65 years. This particular drug happens to have been used billions of times worldwide. It derives from quinine, which is in tree bark. It's been given, for centuries, really. I mean, General Washington gave it to his troops in the Revolutionary War. So to then have the governors, through the state boards, threaten us, we were threatened with unprofessional conduct if we prescribed hydroxychloroquine. This has never happened. This, for me, was the reason I started talking about this publicly, because the doctor-patient relationship has to be sacrosanct. That's just the one corner of the universe where the patient's actually honest, the doctor gives their best assessment or information, and it was completely violated because patients were hearing from the media that this drug didn't work, so they weren't interested. I couldn't sit and combat that because I was being told if I prescribe it, I could be told that I was guilty of unprofessional conduct. So all of a sudden, I didn't have free speech with my patients. They didn't have free speech with me. This is just terrible. This really, separate from COVID, separate from hydroxychloroquine, this is super dangerous. The governors empowered the state pharmacies through the pharmacy boards to question if doctors were prescribing it. It is routine. You can look all over the internet. You can find audio tapes really, of doctors on the phone with pharmacists. Pharmacists are refusing to fill their prescriptions. This has just never happened.